Yes, my name is Adrianne, and I am an intuitive Western astrologer. I'll give you a little bit of background on how I got started studying astrology, which now feels kind of crazy to think about because I was raised Christian homeschooled in a very strict religious environment, but somehow discovered astrology quite young. I was 12, maybe 13, and began studying it, um, which at the time looked like sneaking out books at Barnes and Noble and, pillaging the early recesses of the internet to find whatever astrological information I could find. And so this sort of became a fascination for many years, but also it was something that I kept secret because in the environment I was raised in, Jesus was not so cool with astrology. Um, so eventually I did end up leaving my religion and had a bit of a spiritual awakening that took me in a very different direction in my life. And so that opened up my expression of astrology, and people started coming to me for readings. Actually, it was probably around my early 20s that people started coming to me for readings, and I kind of couldn't stop them from coming. I've actually barely ever advertised my astrology reading business. It's been word of mouth for years now. But anyway, that's where I find myself today. And I've been giving professional readings officially for where we at about 15 years now or so. It's been some time. Anyway, um, today I wanted to discuss the use of astrology both for understanding your personal cosmic blueprint and for finding success in your life, whether it be personal success or business success. Um, I'm not sure how much you guys know about astrology. Some of you might be beginners where you just know your sun sign. Some of you might have studied astrology yourself and you've seen your chart before, and perhaps you've gotten many readings. Astrology is quite old, actually, and that's something a lot of people don't know. The study of astrology is at least 16,000 years old that we know of. We have found artifacts in various cultures dating all the way back to that time, showing the study of the heavens and various tribes making signs and symbols and learning delineations of what's going on in the sky. So it's a very, very old form of study. In fact, astrology used to be equated with science for a very long time. And it's actually only recent years where science has poo-pooed astrology and dismissed it as something that's not worth a study. But some of us know better. Anyway, what a lot of people don't know is Presidents Ronald Reagan and Theodore Roosevelt consulted with famous astrologers for a lot of their decisions, a lot of their political action. A lot of famous leaders across the world have used astrologers, whether publicly or in secret, both to have better understanding of their personal patterns and to help them make decisions at large for the countries they're running. So astrology really weaves its way through history pretty thoroughly. So when we're looking at an astrological chart, which I'm not going to get too nerdy about today because it'll get way out there and a little hard for you guys maybe to understand, those of you who are at least new to astrology. But when I'm looking at an astrological chart, there are three things I'm taking into consideration. I am looking at your personal chart and your personal cosmic blueprint. That is where all the planets were when you were born, and kind of what your incarnation is doing here on the planet. These are patterns of energy that tend to show up in your life. These are interests you tend to have. These are perhaps relationship patterns, family patterns, money patterns. All of these things will show up in your personal astrology chart. And then the second thing I'm looking at is the transits. That is the cosmic weather of the moment affecting your personal chart. And that's going to tell me a lot about how things are going right now in different parts of your life. So, is it a good time to make that big business decision you're thinking about making? Is it going to be an easy time in your relationship, or are you heading into a challenging time in your relationship? Is it going to be a good financial year for you? Is it going to be a tough financial year for you? Is it going to be a year that's particularly difficult in your health? These are all things I can see when I look at transits on your chart. And transits just mean where the planets are orbiting in the sky in relationship to the chart you were born with. So there's that. And then the third thing is the general cosmic weather. What's going on in the transits out there kind of for everyone right now? That also sets a tone, because of course we have our personal astrology, like our own chart and what's happening for us, but we're also in context, right? Like we're with the rest of what's going on in the world around us. And we don't always get to be independent of context. So when I'm studying charts for people, these are the three things I'm looking at. And then within the astrology itself, I can usually see that information and that what we might call a cosmic weather report. So how do we use these tools for our success? Well, it all lies in what I just said. It's a weather report. So as you either yourself are studying your astrology, or you hire somebody like me to read it for you, what you can learn is the weather you're going into, right? You know, if we know that it's going to be a rainy day outside, and we know that it's going to be thundering all day, we're going to dress for that. We're going to bring an umbrella. We're going to have our rain boots. We're going to have a coat. You know, similarly with the astrological weather, we can prepare ourselves for the time that we're going to be going into. I'll give a few examples of this from client stories. You know, a client once came to me who is about to make a huge business investment, and they have prepared everything for this investment. They're really excited about it. And I notice as I'm meeting with this client, they're really rushing. They're really rushing hard. And so I'm like looking at their chart, and I'm seeing that there is a really harsh combination of Mars and Uranus energy. And I'm like, oh, that's the kind of energy that burns really hot and hard, and it's going to crash if it's not careful. And right on the other side of that transit, within a couple of months, I see a heavy Saturn transit coming for this person. Now, I know you might not know what all those planets mean, but I'll talk about it a little bit. So, you know, when you see something like a rush energy like that, and then it's going to go into Saturn, the person is heading for a time that is going to suddenly get very challenging and force them to be more conservative and to slow down with their resources. So when I'm looking at this person's chart and seeing that this pattern is coming in their chart, I say, you know, I know you're really excited about making this investment, but one of the things that you might consider doing based on what I'm seeing in your timeline is slowing down and being actually more conservative with your resources. So if you're going to make this investment, maybe make it a little bit smaller or more cautiously. And that person actually was a little unhappy with me at the time when I gave that report. But within the week, they changed their plan. And within a few months, sure enough, they reported back to me and said, actually, this whole other life challenge showed up that slowed everything down. And actually, it would have been a wrong decision to move as fast as I was going to move on that investment. That's one example. Another example would be a relationship example, actually, where a couple was going to get married, and they were going to get married on this certain date. And they were like consulting me about that date. They're like, is this good? Is this going to be okay? You know, and I'm looking at the date they're going to get married, and there's some good things about it, but I'm also seeing that it looks like there's going to be a lot of technology problems on that day. So with that in mind, you know, I'm seeing all this Mercury stuff going on. So with that in mind, I'm saying, look, if you're going to do this, that's fine. But one thing you want to do is adjust around the potentiality or the probability, I guess we would say, of these kinds of problems happening. So triple check your technology, or make it like a minimal technology wedding. Maybe change locations so that things are a little bit more conducive to more grounded, to a more grounded experience for people, etc. Sure enough, they had tech problems all day that day, because they ended up going with the day, and they had to change everything about their wedding last minute, which it was fine for them. But, they reported back and told me, yep, that was right on. These are a few basic examples of the kinds of things you can see in astrology. Sometimes people also come to me very, very single, and they're like, oh my God, when is there going to be a chance for love in my life? Now, I can't tell you who your person is going to be. Only the fates know that. But what I can see in your astrology chart is a time in your life where a window is going to open up, a window of attraction, of magnetism, like somebody's going to likely be there for you to explore relations with. That also shows up in your astrology pretty strongly. Financial tough years, financial good years. Sometimes people are going through like a year-long financially good transit. I try to let my clients know about that. Like, you're going to have Jupiter in your second house in a part of the sky that has to do with finances for a whole year. Here's some good ways to use that energy in your chart. Sometimes people are going to have the planet Saturn, which is constriction, in their financial house for 2 or 3 years because it's a longer transit. And I say, okay, here's how we plan conservatively around that energy. Knowledge is everything. Being able to know the weather that's coming is everything. So, this is a really helpful tool. I use it in my own life all of the time, and am constantly checking my own transits and using that information to elect a different astrology for myself. I'll even give one example from my own life. Last year, I worked really hard on an art show, and I was a little disappointed in the timing because I really wanted to go to school for something, but it wasn't quite the right time to go to school. However, I looked ahead to this year and saw Jupiter, the planet of expansion, going into the part of my chart that has to do with learning. And I was like, oh my God, it's going to happen next year. I don't need to be sad about it this year. It's going to happen next year. So sure enough, the opportunity opened perfectly this year for me to be able to go to school. And it went way better than it would have gone last year. And because I trusted that timing, everything worked out really, really well. So the more we can understand about the cosmic clock, the more we can work with that cosmic clock, both for that personal success, for that business success, to give a few examples. If you want to learn more about your chart, I am available to do readings. I know that Helen has my information posted in the Curious Souls page. If you want to begin learning about astrology yourself, if you are that kind of a nerd, which I definitely am, you can go to astro.com, which is a site called Astro Deanist, and you can sign up for free and you can make a free chart for yourself. And you can begin to explore your chart, where all your planets were when you were born. And that will at least give you a bit of an idea on the chart you were born with and your cosmic blueprint. And it will be like a basic beginning of the knowledge to see what you're working with. I highly recommend that. There's so many apps now that are out that make it particularly accessible for people. I have a lot of clients who use CoStar, or I know there's others now, but CoStar comes to mind as an app to begin to access your chart. I think CoStar also does basic transits and stuff like that in a really accessible and understandable way. But I'm excited always to talk about this tool. I find that it's tremendously helpful for people. It's tremendously helpful for me. And I would love to see more people accessing it just to help them in understanding the beginning, the middle, and the end of a time that they're going through and how to prepare better for the future. I think that's about all I've got for now, Helen. It's been really lovely to join you guys today and to share a little bit about astrology.
Well, thank you so much, Adrianne. And I'm so sorry we had so many little tech issues to get started.
Yeah,
You do have a couple of minutes. Let's see
I
if there's
do.
any questions.
Yeah.
So if anyone would like to hop in with a quick question for Adrianne before she has to run away, we would so appreciate it. And if you don't have time to comment or ask a question right now in real time, please do reach out to Adrianne and ask her your questions, because she will be happy to let you know. Some of the things she told me, okay, one of the things I remember, which was so funny, Adrianne, you told me during my chart, you were like, do you like literally bump into things? Like literally bump into things? And I'm like, yes, all the time. I cannot walk through a door frame without ricocheting off the thing. Like, I do not know how I'm not one big bruise, actually. But it
Yeah.
was just so funny that something like that should have been in my chart. So now I think to myself, oh no, I'm not just clumsy. I'm in my chart. What can a girl do? So
Yeah.
so it's just fascinating to me, the stuff that shows up.
That's exactly it. It can be surprising details that show up in the chart and things you would not expect. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really fun. And I really enjoyed it. I so appreciate you, Adrianne, doing this today. I'm sure people are going to reach out to you with questions, and I really hope that they do. So thank you so very much, and for being part of this, and for kicking us off and bearing with us. Okay.
My honor. Thanks so much for the invitation.
Well, thanks, Adrianne. Okay, thanks. Okay.